Wow, so we just met backstage, and I always, it's my habit when meeting someone, I always try to go in for the firm handshake. And I thought, don't grab that man's hands too hard. Those are multi-million-dollar fingers. Although, for all I know, you might be up to a billion now. I don't know.
But your hand is soft too.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah. Well, you know, the work that you use the piano, and I just use the keyboard, and it's not hard work typing. No. Different kind of keyboard, though. So let's talk about this record. There's so much to talk about. We've got a lot to cover here. You were in September named New York's first cultural ambassador. You have the New York Rhapsody album, which is a very different kind of record where, among other things, you are playing Rhapsody in Blue with Herbie Hancock, but you're also doing things like mashing up a Lou Reed song, Dirty Boulevard with Somewhere from West Side Story. So Lou Reed meets Leonard Bernstein, and this is there's a lot to cover here. So let's start with New York Rhapsody. Where did this all begin for you?
Right. First of all, I actually was very, very overwhelmed and grateful when I performed with Herbie Hancock in 2008, the Grammy Award ceremony. So we played the Rhapsody in Blue by Gershwin for 6 minutes. Yeah, it's pretty long.
Which is a long time.
Yeah,
for
Grammys,
actually.
like really, yeah. And then afterward, we started the big world tour, like everywhere, and then Herbie was so influential. I mean, his music and also the way he plays the piano inspired me tremendously. So afterward, I was thinking, well, you know, maybe one day I should also making a recording with him, but also to find other musicians to do different collaborations, and we should base on a theme. So we've been finding the right theme for this, and then we thought, oh, New York is the right one because New York is the world's biggest melting pot, and you can really basically get all kinds of music in this city. You know, from jazz to soul and to hip hop and to pop to I mean everything, you name it. And so that's the reason why we started to calling this kind of a New York concept.
So it really does all go back to that performance of Rhapsody in Blue, the Gershwin song with Herbie Hancock.
Yeah, it's all come from there. Yeah.
That's fascinating, and so you centered it around New York City, and of course you grew up in China, and you grew up playing classical music. So I want to know how did New York first present itself to you when you were all the way in China? What was your image of New York, and how did it differ from when you actually? What did you find when you actually got here?
Yeah. So first of all, when I was playing like children's song, and I remember there's a little piece called Empire State Building, not Empire State of Mind. So it was not existing at that time, and I kind of pictured New York as this, you know, a lot of high-rise buildings, and then also I saw many movies and TV soap, even in the cartoons, you know, you see New York, and so I always had this big metropolitan city, gigantic city, and then I learned from my textbooks about Carnegie Hall, about Lincoln Center, the Metropolitan Opera and Metropolitan Museums, and all those iconic, and of course Times Square. So when I came, I was actually 14 years old in 1996, and I remember arriving in JFK. I was like, wow, this is the world. Like everyone talks in different languages and everyone looks different. You know, I never seen such a big world in front of me. So then I actually studied in the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia. And then every weekend I came to New York with the Greyhound bus and sometimes with the $2 Chinatown bus to I remember very well, and to come to see a concert, to see the great musicians, great artists performing, and I often sneak into the backstage and then try to meet them, and so that was the early time. But I always felt incredible when I'm here. It feels like I learned so much here, and there's so many wonderful knowledge to offer.
You know, the selection of material on this album is really very interesting. There are some songs, you mentioned Empire State of Mind. You have a version of it here. You have some artists like Lou Reed and Bernstein who you've put together, and those are both New York associated artists. Yes. But you have some very interesting songs as well. There's one, New York Morning, right, which is by a British alternative rock band, Elbow. It's not the most famous song, really, and I'm just wondering, how did you come to pick the material on this record?
Yeah, so we want everything to be from the morning to the evening. So we have like Copeland in the Evening Air, which is a beautiful American classic piano work. It's really beautiful. And then in the same time, we like to show the different dimensions of New York. So we have the Moon River from the movie, and we have a New York Minute, which shows New York can be changed, whether good or bad, in 1 minute, this is the reality here.
Right.
And then, of course, we also had my very good friend Lindsay Starling. We did the Spider-Man.
Right. The Danny Elfman theme to Spider-Man.
Right. So we did some arrangement. And then, of course, how can you not have a Tonight by Leonard Bernstein? And so the idea is that we don't want to play some kind of cover songs that you already heard so many times in another kind of way of playing. We want to have a complete different arrangement with a complete different concept, like with trumpet, and with people probably don't expect, this song actually is not singing, but it's with trumpet. And this song is actually with violin instead of, and then we also combine the two songs, which doesn't have any connection.
Right.
But we think, through piano. Piano is almost like a bridge. You kind of take those two elements into one piece. And then also we like to fit more into today's taste. So it's not like you hear something, it's another classical or jazz album, but we want to mix with the new genre.
So you've spoken in the past about the feeling that there can be a cultural gap for Chinese performers and classical music, European classical music. And I'm wondering what kind of gap you felt approaching this very different kind of music, this popular music, which is not the music you trained with.
Right. I mean, recently, for the last 5 years, I played with a few wonderful artists who's not from our regular kind of times. For example, normally...
You mean Metallica?
I will play... Yeah, for example, Metallica or Pharrell Williams.
Sure.
Teaming up with Hans Zimmer. And also I worked with a very big Korean pop band called Big Bang. So I'm trying to find out what is the possibilities, and there are a lot of things to learn, from pop musicians. And one thing is very interesting. I found out normally people will think classical musicians are very stiff. We're like piece of history, and then we're like a rock, never moves, and then the music is kind of like very proper, very proper. But actually, it's not, because I realized when I went into the studio, whether with Metallica or with Pharrell or in this situation, in this album, actually those musicians are playing much more on the beat than us. And I think one of the the greatest conductor of all time, von Karajan, he said, in classical music symphony, there shouldn't be bars, and I think that's really the truth. That means that we actually don't exactly play the beats, and but in pop music, it's actually maybe the way of the singer sing is much more expressive or more free, but the beats, the fundamental beats are much more set than us, and you don't mess up with bar lines, so that's what I learned, and I'm like, wow, I'm actually was quite free before.
So you actually that's really interesting. So the complete reverse of what someone might think.
Right,
you
right.
find a little less freedom in pop
Right,
music
and I
than
thought
you do in
we are the
classical.
crazy ones.
You mentioned before that there's an image of a classical musician as stiff and like a rock, and that's so much not the way you are when you perform. I've even read that before a particularly crucial concert, you were imagining Michael Jordan's
Slam dunk.
Yeah. Okay, how did that? How did that? Tell me about that. How did that come to be? How did you come to think about approaching the music with the image of a Tiger Woods or a Michael Jordan in your head?
I mean, of course, it depends on the pieces.
Okay.
When you play a Bach Goldberg variation, you don't think about slam dunk. But when you play Liszt piano concerto, when you play the Rachmaninoff, the big pieces, the big romantic pieces, you need to think about everything which can help you to think of. And of course, when you see those great athletes doing their swings, or when they're doing their tricks, and it's just so inspiring, because playing music, it's also very physical, and in the same time, you need to be really thinking a lot with your brain and your heart to feel it, right? But it's very physical. I mean, there are a lot of passages. If I just sitting there, it's hard to deal with it. I need to use every part of my body. Maybe not maybe not here. So that's why it's easy to gain weight here. Yeah, but you see, my hand is always very fit. That moves a lot. So I think and so I think it's when you see a piano recital, I think it's a package. I really believe in that. It's not just listen to the music, but also it's very visual, and we sometimes put a projector on the keys. So it's almost like when you see a movie or opera, you have subtitles, right, on the theater. So sometimes when I play, I put this projector so you can see my hands like in action.
So you can see
Yeah,
from above.
yeah, and actually people like a little bit more, because they normally only see our profile.
Right.
It's like this. They don't even know how does the pianist look like.
Right.
Or sometimes after the concert, I like to meet my friends and talk about music, just like now. Because for instrumentalists, it's quite hard, because we normally don't talk, right? And then which is sometimes good, because when you play something, if you don't understand the language, you kind of understand what we're doing, right? But if if you never talk, then it's a major problems. And I think that's sometimes for classical musician, it's important for us to share our ideas and feelings. And this is
In another way, obviously, than through the music.
right, yeah. And also I think it's important for us to take responsibilities for the public schools, to really encouraging them to have music back.
So you're talking a little bit about social responsibility here, and I know that you have a foundation that addresses exactly this. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, here's my foundation. Here's the bracelet. The Lang Lang International Music Foundation. Yeah. Yeah, and so our idea is to help the American public schools to re-establish their music class within the school system. Thank you. And now in New York, we already have 5 schools in Harlem and in East Brooklyn, which we're bringing music back. Yeah.
So tell me just a little more about the foundation. Exactly. What do you do? What's your involvement? You have a benefit coming up, don't you?
So first of all, we believe it's not only that we need to bring awareness to the society. That hey, come, let's build a program. I mean, that's one thing. We can talk about this like whole day, but doesn't mean anything. Because everybody knows the important things. One of the key things is how we build a method. And it's just like when we learn something, the first month is very, very important, or first week. If you get something wrong in the first week, you probably hate this thing. And like when I was a kid, my first mathematics teacher wasn't good. Of course, I just blame on the teachers. But the truth is, for a long time, I got so worried. When I feel about mathematics, I remember his face. So I got scared, and so my grade wasn't good. For a long time, and so that's what I felt exactly like how people's attitude toward music. Sometimes the kids just get pushed. Especially if you have a very very pushy parents. And it can be, the case is like, why I'm listening to this music, why I need to learn music. But actually, music is the most accessible thing to learn because it's almost like a language, and it's beyond language in a way. And so we need to bring the best experience right away. So in order to do that, we created, like 101 pianist event. We get all those young pianists to come together to play for you for the first time. And for the kids, when they see the other kids having such a good time, they just kind of get moved and they kind of get into it because the other kids are doing, in such a joyful time. And I think that's the way, you need to inspire them. You need to create a great method. So our method is everything is in cartoon. So it's almost like a cartoon book. And you'll see me like 80 years old, spiky haired. Today I did not put my finger into the electric, so that's why it's a little flat today.
So the idea of making everything like a cartoon, that's part of your inspiration, right? You've talked about being 3 years old and seeing a Tom and Jerry cartoon where Tom plays the piano, right?
Right. And I told my mom I want Tom's tuxedo with with a tail, yeah.
You were just talking about this mathematics teacher who you had trouble with, and it's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, how you cope with criticism, because you've also talked about being 10 or 11 years old and having a difficulty with your piano instructor and being told you wouldn't continue at conservatory.
Right,
Even now, you sometimes come under criticism for the way you wear your hair or approach the piano physically on stage. And so how do you deal with criticism and setbacks?
Yeah, I think it's great that we get critical comments. It gives us more things to think. I mean, of course, you cannot agree. It's fine. Yeah, but there are a lot of things that you can respect with other people. And I think that's the good thing about art. People have a different opinion, and I'm used to it. It's fine. From my first day in class, it was always very open. With the classmate, they can say whatever, what they think. And I think this is the right thing to do for art. We need to get pushed a little bit, and we need to think something different. And I love to be criticized, and I have no problem because time will prove everything. That's what I believe.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. Let's take some questions from the audience and see if anyone in the audience has some criticism for you.
Hi. I was wondering, outside of classical music, what genre of music do you connect with the most? And is there an artist within that genre that you'd like to collaborate with someday?
That's a great, it's of course, classical music is my absolutely first love, and then there are others like jazz. I really respect the great talent from the jazz musician, especially that they never play everything the same. I mean, they always try something different, and they're like the best cook in the world. And of course, and rock and roll, brings your incredible energy and this power. And pop music really sometimes melting our heart, with the beautiful voice, people like Adele. And people also like, in my album, I really love her voice. Adria Day, I think she's just so, she has such a beautiful taste of her voice. And of course, hip hop, now it's really among EDM music.
Did I actually read that you at one point wanted to put a Lil Wayne song on this record?
We were thinking about it. Yeah, we really, we also, thinking to get Jay-Z in, or something.
Okay.
But he's busy, of course. Yeah. So maybe in the future, and of course, people. Just people has ideas, and then sometimes it doesn't need to be people we know. It can be some newcomers, but who has a brilliant ideas. Sure. I think the only counts in the end, right? So.
We have another. There we go.
Hi. Thank you for being here. What's been the most surreal moment in your career thus far?
Surreal moment. I would say the 2008 opening of the Beijing Olympics. That was really surreal because I've been always dreaming to play at the opening for the Olympic Games because that's the moment that the whole world come together, right, to celebrate sport and culture and everything else. And it was incredible to, to have that opportunity to perform in Beijing, actually, and then this is the first ever Chinese Olympic Games to the world. And,
do you get nervous at a moment like that, or is that?
I was really nervous until I realized that I'm actually teaming up with a 5-year-old girl on the piano. So then I'm like, okay, if she's not nervous, why should I? And the only thing she wanted was chocolate ice cream. And so from the first moment, I'm like, hey, baby, please stay. I give you a good ice cream after. And she, after plays 20 seconds, she said, I don't want to wait. It's too hot here. I want ice cream now.
Wow, okay. There we go. She's got a tough rider in her contract. We've got time for one more question.
Hello. I just wanted to know, what did you think is the greatest piece of music ever created?
Do I think the greatest music ever? That's hard. It's really, really hard because it's like, what is your favorite dish? And sometimes I think maybe it's my mother's homemade dumplings. So in general, of course, I believe in classical music, of course. Yeah. If you just maybe it's really hard.
But let me ask you a different question. What pieces still present a real challenge for you?
I mean, every piece still represent challenge because even a very simple piece, you need to. The more you know about it, it makes you more challenged because when you know 100 different ways of playing that piece, you need to make a choice. How I'm going to do it. So it's not like once you're getting older, I mean, of course you get wiser, but it doesn't mean that the game is easier. And so that's what I felt. There are a lot of pieces. Of course, I played already pretty well when I was 18 years old or 13 years old, but now I play the game like, oh, it's a different game, but game is on. So.
That's great. It's a great way of looking at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.